Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the season finale of What We Do in the Shadows, Sunrise Sunset. And I overall enjoyed this episode. I think it was a little bit rushed to kind of finish everything off and kind of get us to the usual kind of status quo, but a little bit of a change status quo as well. Hopefully, we'll kind of see what happens. I did see that this was renewed for a season 5 and a season 6, so we've at least got 2 more seasons worth of stuff to kind of like contend with. So we'll see kind of how that percolates and how that goes. Overall, this season was very strange for me in that it had more misses than hits. Not completely all the way through, but I would still recommend this series to a lot of people. And just because of how good the first couple seasons are, and granted, I always give a show enough of a kind of leeway, depending upon what kind of goes on, to have its missteps and learn from them. Because I'm saying this right now as it was made, and potentially it at least gets through to the process further on for certain things if it works out or if it doesn't. Or they just ignore me. That's also the case as well. But this one definitely worked for me, and I kind of wanted a little bit more with like angsty Colin, but they at least did stuff with angsty Colin, so I'm at least happy in that regard with it. Nadja's kind of story was kind of weird. Like I don't think they had a complete idea of how to end off the whole nightclub thing. Like, it's an interesting idea, but they didn't know what to do with it and how to kind of finish it. So that was the kind of weakest bit. And then Guillermo's really kind of picked it up at the end of what was kind of going on, and hopefully we'll kind of see what goes on with that. Nandor's was pretty much finished up in the previous kind of episode, and we just kind of get a bookend of it still doing the same kind of stuff. So we don't get the usual kind of intro. We have Laszlo doing this whole sunrise sunset as we're explaining that he is having vast issues with Colin because he is in his teenage angsty phase, being pretty much an asshole. However, he has gotten to this stage in about a year, and he does not still know that he's an energy vampire while stuff's going on. We see him just being a dick pretty much. In most kind of instances, wearing his headphones, telling Laszlo to pretty much fuck off and all that kind of shit. We see him at play dates with like other kids, and everybody's like, "What the fuck's going on?" And he then complains to Laszlo because he was supposed to be on base, and this other kid fucking ignored the rules, and he's like sitting on Laszlo's lap for it. So there's still the kind of kid mentality of it, but we see amped up kind of stuff. He's bashing things and still bashing the holes in the walls, which we do get a payoff. Thank God. I actually really liked the reveal on that part, but we'll get to that in a minute. So we see all that kind of happening. We see that Guillermo's trying to help him, kind of teaching him to play baseball and stuff, and like he's trying to like help him out through this kind of shit. But his stuff isn't working either. So that's pretty much the general kind of consensus that we get at the beginning. Let's kind of deal with not just kind of stuff. She tries to do all these things to get everything back because Colin was the biggest draw. And I get that to a certain extent, but there's a lot of stuff you should be able to do with like a vampire nightclub. She tries to do a rap battle with vampires. That doesn't work. She tries a human comedy improv group, and that doesn't work. She has Laszlo fucking playing his own songs where he calls pretty much the audience stupid motherfuckers. That was kind of funny. And I do like that we got Laszlo's actor just doing a whole bunch of shit. Like, he has a lot of character development and like dealing with the crazy situations that happen with Colin. But then we see him doing all these songs and shit throughout the episode, and he just could fucking sing, man. Like, alright, using those skills. But it was just funny because you have to really know what you're doing to sing the songs that they sing, especially like Who Will Come First on the Wedding Night. And then he's just using this song to like insult the people in the crowd, and then we see that essentially the nightclub has devolved into bachelorette parties and children's parties, and seeing the guide and the race trying to corral the kids was fucking hilarious. But then we see that the guide is trying to get help from P.T. Barnum, the circus kind of dude. Not just like, what the fuck's going on? I know he's not a vampire. And evidently, the guy knows witchcraft and has fucking captured souls that she can, like, use this kind of whole thing out and, like, bring them back for, like, 24 hours and shit. And not just like, dude, you fucking doing witchcraft? I'm like, you're a fucking vampire. Now, granted, she probably still has the superstitions from when she was alive and everything like that. And that's a kind of interesting thing to kind of work back on. But then she's got all these fucking, like, she's like the second greatest collection of human souls. And she's like, who's got the first? Like, some rich computer guy. And they then bring this, like, music dude up and have him playing. And then not just like, I'm surprised you, like, we could do this. And they essentially do a podcast where they have all these different kind of humans brought back. And the thing is, it's kind of funny because they still only know their certain languages, so they're doing it and not just trying to do this and field this, and it's not really working very well. They even get sponsors and all that, and she has Guillermo kind of like check on it, and they made like 6 cents, and it's like, yes, not that that stuff wouldn't be fucking amazing if you could actually get it out there. It's just shows the crazy ass weird system of trying to make those kind of things, and not just like, people aren't ready for essentially podcasts, but she calls it something else. I'm like, right. It's a hard fucking thing to go through. I do like that they bring up, like, Colin when he had his YouTube channel, and now this. I'm like, yeah, it's fucking hard to do that shit, man. But she then comes to the conclusion, for some fucked up reason, to burn the club down. Like, she sends the race off to pretty much Universal. She sends the guide for a sleepover kind of thing at their house, and her goal is to burn down the club. Now, I didn't know how to kind of handle that as I was watching the episode, but I'm thinking over it more and more, and I'm like, okay, we learn later on that she doesn't have insurance, so she's not doing it for insurance money. I would almost think that it would be a kind of Pyrrhic victory of, like, this fucking thing failed, so I'm going to burn it to the ground. I kind of get that. However, she is stupid and doesn't get her money out, because she attempts to do it, it goes boof, but then we come back in with her and the guy, and she's like, oh yeah, the blood sprinklers finally worked, and put out the fire. I'm like, that was funny, and that was hilarious to me as we see that, and then we go and we see that only her office burnt down with the money that she didn't take out. And I'm like, then why didn't you take the money out? I get it to a certain thing to kind of fuck over Nadja, but it is a plot demandy point to make her that kind of stupid. We do know that the vampires are usually ignorant on certain matters and facts of life. However, there does come moments where, like, plot stupidity comes into effect, and they make them stupid on certain kind of things. If you got a base level of standard for how you see a character operate and think, it's really fucking weird when they do something weird like this. Or, say, eat 7 grilled cheese sandwiches when they never had before Supernatural. But we then see that she has gotten fucked over, and she's like, damn it. So that kind of twirls her stuff out. We see that Colin is getting just kind of crazier. He steals Sean's car and, like, as it crashed into a lake, Laszlo actually is trying to, like, do, like, parenting for him and be like, that's bullshit, why the fuck did you do that? But then they're getting, like, ready and they're fighting over it, and then Sean's like, stop this, and it's reminding him of his parents, him and his dad, so he pretty much is like, alright, you guys are gonna fucking, like, bare knuckle brawl, and Guillermo's like, whoa, hold up, no, and then we see pretty much standard status quo kind of Colin pop up and be like, I'm sorry, Sean, I'm gonna, like, help you get your car out and everything, but then we see that he's feeding, and he's like, Guillermo's like, he's an energy vampire, we gotta tell him, and Laszlo's like, alright, cool. There was also a point where Nandor was like, you guys don't know how to speak to the generation, and it's like, yeah, you gotta kind of speak to them on, like, their experiences are kind of different, like, you can always be like, I remember when I was young once, and it's like, yeah, but there's certain kind of things that are completely different. I didn't have complete and utter access to, like, social media when I was young, so I need to figure out, like, if I'm talking to a young person, what that kind of difference is. And it's kind of weird because my parents before me, I have at least access to the internet, so you got that all kind of different kind of ways. And we see that Nandor explains his thing of pretty much talking teenagers to being cannon fodder in his armies. And he goes down, he tries to talk to Colin, and he's like, yeah, that's kind of cool, man, to like speak with respect and everything to your elders and all that kind of stuff. And then he like turns around, he's like, yeah, I think that went really well. And the thing is, it's kind of cool for Nandor to attempt to assuage the situation, but then seeing Colin in the background making the fucking jerk off kind of signal was just like, yeah. So we get back and we see that Laszlo talks to Colin, explains that he's an energy vampire, and Colin's like, why would you let this happen? And Laszlo's like, there's literally nothing he could do. He attempted in every facet, in every weird fucking way possible to have him not be the boring Colin Robinson. So you can't even say that he didn't attempt. But Colin is who Colin is. He's an energy vampire. He goes down. We see him pretty much knocking through the walls until he hits pretty much a slide thing for a projector. And then we see the great kind of reveal. And I really like the music that they put on this. It kind of has this tense kind of mysterious kind of quality. As he then takes it down, puts it in, he has to line up everything. He hits these three things. It bashes down a secret door, and he goes in, and we see that it is essentially, how would you put it? Imagine you're a phoenix and you have a constant cycle of death and rebirth. And in order to keep yourself pretty much mentally alive, you have journaled and chronicled everything that you have done up until that point in your life. So it's all journals of Colin Robinson. It's got all of his clothes, glasses, and everything, and it's crazy seeing Colin going through, reading, his hair falling out. He opens up this thing to find glasses there. Like, Colin knew what was going down, even though he never said anything. It's like, okay, like, I'm kind of alright with that retcon, but we'll kind of have to see. It does kind of change up, even again, how we had seen the previous season where Laszlo learned about everything going on, and then how he changed his kind of outlook with Colin. And Colin, that just makes Colin a kind of better actor for what he's doing, to still put on the front of like, yeah, I'm gonna die, but like, I'll get through this, and then read this stuff and get back to pretty much normal. And then he comes back in, we get status quo pretty much. He's able to do his energy vampire kind of stuff, and I was like, oh shit. And he's got access to the accounts. They've got like over $600,000. He knows the pin and everything like that. So they could pretty much refurbish the house and everything. So everything's okay. And the thing is, they're like, oh, let me do it. I want to micromanage the shit out of this. We see him doing his stuff. He wants to get rid of the car and everything, the car bed and all that. And Laszlo brings up, like, do you not remember the year? And it's like, that wasn't chronicled in journal. It's like it completely overwrote that kind of thing. He's like, no, man, I didn't, not any of that stuff. And you just see the dejection and the kind of hurt with Laszlo. Even though when he's walking away, he is humming a kind of tune that's kind of reminiscent of what he was into when he was doing the dancing and the singing and everything. So it's like, it's still in there, and he still kind of remembers, even though he says he doesn't. You know what I mean? It's not like a conscious kind of thing, but seeing how sad Laszlo is for it it just really hits. You're like, God damn, you really feel for him, because even though he did fucked up things, it's really kind of crazy. You understand, this is the good parts of like what we do in the shadows and the kind of core for it. These characters, even though they do these horrible, horrendous, and selfish and asshole things, you get those kind of bits and kind of things of, he could have just fucking left that baby in a dark ass hole and let God knows what happened to it. But he didn't. He sent someone to protect his wife over in England, and he stayed here and took care of him and wanted to take care of him the best way possible. Granted, he did do fucked up crazy ass shit, but I think he had the best intentions, and seeing him being like, God damn, and just sadly playing the piano was a very poignant moment. And they really get that across, and that's the kind of great thing about this. It's a comedy, and when it hits, and hits well with its executed jokes and everything, it just fucking works. But also when it does really good with its characters, it just really gets you into the story, the characters, and like the overall plot, the overall world. It brings you in, and that's one of the greatest strengths of this show. That's what's a big core thing of it. So it was just like, god damn. So we then see that Guillermo is dealing with kind of all the changes as well. Marwa being gone, Colin pretty much being back to his old self. He's having kind of empty nest syndrome going on. He's wondering why he really even needs to be around. And then he pretty much talks to Nandor, and Nandor's just pretty much in a book reading phase. And he's like, well, what are you doing now? It's like, oh, you do this for like 15, 20 years. Ask what the whole point was with getting married and doing the whole big wedding and everything. He's just, I guess since he's immortal, he just wanted to shake things up. And then Guillermo's like, he's not going to change me into a vampire. And he just makes the decision that he needs to be done and leave. And he tells the crew to leave. Another funny thing that they did with the crew is that Nadja told the crew to get out before she set it on fire. It's like, get the fuck out. But he's like, yeah, you can use that for storage and everything, gets this big bag, and then leaves. And then we see that he goes to the convenience store where Derek's working, plops down the money, and he's like, what the fuck's this for? He's like, I want you to turn me into a vampire. And that was another great big character moment. I'm like, I'm glad that we had this. Guillermo finally had his kind of breakthrough thing. Like, he also brought up the whole thing with his losing his boyfriend to pretty much himself, which was a fucked up situation, and just that Nandor does not care for him to make him a vampire and do it in his own way. And I don't like that Guillermo stole that money, because he stole that money. Never mind the fact that he has been owed for other kind of stuff. He didn't need to do it that way, and if those people were going to continue to fuck him over, he should have left beforehand. But he's using this, and he's trying to get out of that stupid ass shit, and he's like, I want to be a vampire. I'm like, it was great to see him be like, fuck Nandor, he's never going to do it, he's a selfish asshole. Granted, he has been elevated into even more of a supreme selfish asshole this season, I guess, to at least completely push Guillermo into his own kind of character development and character choices, to be like, I'm done with this, I want to be a vampire. That has been his goal, and I'm glad that we've seen movement on this. Now granted, I don't know what is actually going to come of this, because we pretty much have reached back to status quo portions with Nadja having no nightclub, so that means she'll probably get back together with Laszlo. Not that she left him, but like we'll see them interacting more. Colin Robinson's back to his old self, so he'll probably have to, he's been dead for technically a year, or he'll just be like, I went on a sabbatical, and then find another office job or whatnot. And Nandor is just back to being his aloof asshole self, this time reading books. Guillermo, move forward. Hopefully he does become a vampire, or we get introduced to a situation where Derek attempts to make him a vampire, the blood kills him, and then Guillermo is completely and utterly shattered, learning that he can never become a vampire, and that his greatest dream and everything is just fucked for him. Now granted, that would completely and utterly fucking suck, and I wouldn't wish that upon anyone, but it would lead into more of the status quo, or he'd break his mind completely and decide to completely and utterly go into his vampire hunting heritage, and he becomes technically the big bad of a season and attempts to take out the housemates. Granted, that would technically go one of two ways, where the plot would completely and utterly stretch it to where Guillermo would not be able to do it, because of like Looney Tunes like style. There's actually a third way where he's like, his feelings eventually overcome, or he like completely and utterly takes them out, like no muss, no fuss kind of shit, where he's able to do it. That could be an interesting kind of way. I would prefer seeing him actually become a vampire and then actually trying to deal with being a vampire more than anything, and what that would kind of entail, if the other vampires would get another familiar, and what that would kind of entail, trying to bring somebody else new into the whole kind of dynamic, and what that would kind of change that way. That would be more where I would like to go with it. I'd like to see Guillermo attempt to get his dream, finally get it, and what kind of changes and ramifications that would make, and how the rest of the house would kind of react to that. Potentially seeing him get maybe even higher within the vampire world than his Staten Island family, and what kind of friction that could potentially introduce. So I did like this episode. There were funny enough moments that I was able to be like, and even some laugh out loud ones from me, where especially the blood sprinklers. That one was one where I just laughed, and I'm like, yeah, it hasn't worked all season, and this, it just completely fucked you over. That was just fucking great. And I understand trying to get back to a kind of status quo kind of effect. You can't have a complete change and be like, next time on Dragon Ball Z, cliffhanger kind of thing. I don't like that either, but I do like the opening of possibilities for different kind of stories, so we'll kind of see what goes on with the rest of the housemates, and especially Guillermo in the next season. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.